What's this, you fucking piece of shit?
What is up, guys? PoliticsGaming here, and today we're doing a brand new video of Power and Revolution 2023. Go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to the channel. I have a link down in the description below if you guys are interested in using Factor to try and eat healthy. Helps the channel out a lot if you guys are interested in changing your diet and getting into a healthier lifestyle. So we're going to go ahead and quickly get into it today. I know you guys are very eager to hear about the new features in the 2023 edition. So in the previous video, basically what we covered was immigration and military. What we have coming in the military realm is basically a troop morale. We have artillery, fortifications, a lot of centric ideas that are a part of the Ukraine war. Probably one of the most exciting features I think is going to be coming is going to be the big changes to immigration. I've always really liked interacting with immigration in Power and Revolution, and so in the next one we have like an actual detailed immigration flow on every single country, which is like entering and leaving, why they're in your country, where they are going, and why they are what kind of immigrant they are essentially. So it's like their immigration, or their economic, students, humanitarian, familial, or they're illegal. And then we have regularization, naturalization, construction of detention centers, border walls, agreements with other countries on the issuance of visas, detention of migrants in transit, or like caravans essentially. And then we also have things like the Schengen area, not really a big thing. But if you're a European Union player, then very interesting feature for you. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and get into what is some of the biggest features that I think you guys are going to be very excited for, and some of them are honestly going to be the weirdest ones that we have ever gotten in a Power and Revolution game. But the first thing that we're going to be covering is going to be the biggest one I think you guys are going to be excited for. And this is the sale, purchase, and annexation of territory in order to acquire or cede territory peacefully with a popular referendum. Scenarios on the acquisition and annexation of Greenland as a major power or as a Nordic country allow you to carry out these changes in sovereignty. What this means in English is essentially peaceful annexation. What you can do is that you can buy now territories from other countries. So basically, if you wanted to buy Greenland, if you wanted to buy California as China, if you wanted to buy Alaska as Russia, if you wanted to buy Yukon or Saskatchewan or British Columbia as the United States, you can do that now. So there is essentially what we have is this brand new screenshot that we have right here, which this is the territorial secession treaty or purchase between the United States and territories with a strong acceptability. So this essentially filters it to countries or territories that would accept it at a good price. And this shows that Greenland is about to be purchased by the United States. This was actually talked about during the Trump administration, in which Trump actually talked about buying Greenland from Denmark. And on the right, we have the description of it, which is the acquisition of sovereign state's territory from another is done in two stages. First, the government and parliament of the ceding country must give their consent. So not only does the government have to approve it, but the parliament of that country has to approve it. And then this will depend on the price offered, which will be based on several factors such as size, population, wealth, which it means energy, industrial, and GDP. Tourism is also a factor in this. And then second, a self-determination referendum of the ceded territory's population must approve the transfer of sovereignty by a majority vote. So not only does the government and the parliament of that country, of the other country, have to approve of this, the people of that territory must be put through a referendum, which will need to be held in order to have this transfer of sovereignty go through. If this is rejected, then the transfer will not happen. So we can see right here that the price offered is $1.1 trillion to Denmark, it looks like. At least that's what I think, or it's saying giving it to Greenland, I think. I don't know if it's giving it to Denmark, as Denmark is the actual holder and territorial administrator of Greenland, except Greenland is very much sovereign. But we also see that there's an estimate which we can try to range between. So this is essentially similar to how it works with, I believe, the trade contracts, where it says that here's the lowest price and then the highest price, and then you kind of guess a number in between it. Maybe if you overestimate it, then they will obviously accept it. But then if you underestimate it, or maybe if it's like too low in between 179 billion to 1.6 trillion dollars, then they will not accept it, because they're like, why, we're not making that much money off of giving up our sovereignty to another country. So I think that is a very big feature, because a lot of people have been asking for this over the past couple of years. We have always been, there's been so many people that I've talked to about Power and Revolution. They've been saying we need peaceful annexation in Power and Revolution, and it is finally on its way. So do you guys think that this is a good feature? Are you guys excited for the peaceful annexation feature? Or is this just something that you were not looking forward to? The next one that we have is going to be the changing of the various social laws in your country. And various social laws in Power and Revolution 2023 comes as follows. So we're going to have laws such as surrogacy laws. We're going to have the status of transgendered persons. We're going to have the level of smoking restrictions in public places. We're going to have regulation of religious garb, the fight against unreported employment and modern slavery. And then we also have many other additions, such as the interest rates of the European Central Bank, fixing of severance pay, and the option of realistic construction times. The Australian Senate has also been added, and we also have major additions to the energy sector, such as mega wind and solar farms. So essentially, instead of the 2 terawatts that we get off of these small solar and wind power, we now have mega wind and solar farms, which are going to essentially be like maybe like the wind and solar farms that we have outside of like Vegas. We have a bunch of them in Oklahoma. I live in Texas, but Texas is definitely one of the biggest producers of wind energy. And then we also have various improvements to the God and Spy modding tool, obviously. And then we have a scenario which establishes over 100 democracies in the world. So essentially, maybe you're hacking into their political systems, trying to get democracies installed in there. So there has to be some sort of feature in there where we essentially kind of push democracy onto dictatorships. So that's very interesting, because I don't really, unless it's like some sort of like funding like terror groups in that country or something like that, I don't really understand that, because there's not any detail on how we're going to establish over 100 democracies in the world. But we also have the accelerated production of military equipment. So that's actually a very big one, which is essentially like aircraft carriers, tanks, everything like that. It takes years for us to produce this. They actually finally have touched on it, in which now whenever we produce weapons, we can accelerate the production of this equipment and try to get, if we want to build up our military, we can do it at a much quicker pace than me having to submit like 50 contracts of 100 tanks a piece. That way I can get like 10,000 tanks or something like that. Otherwise I would have to use God and Spy. And then the last one, we have the details of the combativeness of soldiers, which has now been added. So again, big major additions to the military realm of Power and Revolution. Power and Revolution 2023 has taken a big major change whenever it comes to your demographics. So we have the addition of children's rights. Children's rights are defended primarily by the representative of UNICEF in order to improve their living conditions and to participate in the eradication of child labor and pedophilia. What we have right here is the international singer dedicated to children's causes. So this is the new character similar to the Emma Watson character that we have, which essentially fights for women's rights across the realm of your women's sector. I believe this is a brand new type of budget or sector, which essentially is called children, possibly. So we have fight against pedophilia, visit vice squad, prevention, fight against child labor, etc., etc. So the biggest one, the only addition that we have right here, and I believe again they kind of split it up where women basically had its own legislation, and now children have its own legislation and budgets. And so the biggest addition right here is now that we can fund a major fight against pedophilia in 2023. But then this also comes with a major addition to the judicial system. The judicial system has been updated with the determining of severity of sentences. So we have various regulations of control measures, facial recognitions, and social credit scores. And we actually even have a screenshot right here which talks about this. So we have regulates the use of facial recognition in public places, and then we have unauthorized limited to sensitive areas such as nuclear power plants, airports. We have limited to sensitive and high traffic areas such as neighborhoods, tourist spots, stadiums, or we have no restriction in which we can have facial recognition on every single person that is out there. But then we have very weird directions that we are going in whenever it comes to the legislation of the youth of the country. So the biggest one that I actually think is very much needed whenever we're going to be going in this direction is the age of criminal responsibility. Age of criminal responsibility essentially talks about how old you have to be before you are tried as an adult. So if I am 16 years old and I go out and I go assault a old person, then a lot of times you just get sent to juvie, or you are essentially not treated as an adult would be if they were to have committed the same crime. This essentially allows you to lower that age and say, okay, if instead of the age of 18, then I can lower that to 16. So essentially what you can do is you can say, okay, that incident happened, so then I can lower the age of criminal responsibility to 16, and then so those 16-year-olds would be tried as adults in order to face the possibility of the reckoning for any crime that would have been committed or whatever. Another one that I'm very interested in is the determination of the severity of punishments. So what I am hoping here is that we're not going to be looking at what we are looking at right here, where it's basically just 4 little boxes that we can check. What I am hoping is that just like the animal sector that we have, where we basically can go in and we can ban battery farming, we can ban whaling, we can ban dog fighting, cockfighting, everything like that. What I'm hoping is we're going to get a very similar box in which we have things such as murder, assault, rape, everything like that, in which we can have a sort of determination of each and every one of these high crimes and how they are dealt with in Power and Revolution in our country. If that is what we're getting, honestly, I'm very excited for this. I think this is going to be a very big thing that we can finally do. That way we have a little more control over how severe you are treated whenever you commit a certain crime. And then last but not least, we have 2 of them where it's kind of getting a little weird. The first one we are going to be talking about is the prohibition on corporal punishment for children. Essentially what this is, if you're not familiar, is corporal punishment is when you have a kid in school, for example. This kid is being rude, they're being naughty essentially, and so back in the day, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, there was a time in the United States, and maybe even other countries still do it now, where a teacher would basically have this paddleboard and they would go around, and then if you started to act amok, they would get you over to them and they would essentially spank you. And that is essentially what we are looking at. So essentially it's saying, can teachers or can parents corporally punish their children whenever they are being bad? So that essentially maybe it's talking about schooling, or maybe it's talking about even private citizens dealing with their kids. The second one that we have is again going to be the very much weirdest one that we are going to be revealing in any Power and Revolution that I have ever talked about on this channel. That is the setting of the age of sexual consent.
What's this? Huh? What's this, motherfucker? What's this? Huh? What's this? What the fuck is this, motherfucker? Huh? What's this?
Okay.
In Power and Revolution, the lowest age that you can lower things such as driver's licenses, such as the drinking age, I believe is 16. So maybe they're going to make a decision on that because they probably know how controversial this might be. Maybe they're going to leave that at 16, which is very much the lowest age of consent in the United States. And in most modern countries, I believe is around 16, 15. So what I really hope they don't do is go any lower than that, because that's whenever it's going to be very uncomfortable. And essentially, this is like one of the weirdest laws that I'm going to have to deal with, and I'm very much not going to touch it, honestly, in Power and Revolution, especially on streams and everything like that. I'm not even going to come near it. I'm going to look at it once on my stream, and you guys are going to be making so many jokes about it. I'm already making so many jokes about it with memes throughout this entire video. But yeah, again, I really want to know why Eversim decided to add this in here despite the controversy. So again, this might be the most controversial law that has been ever added into Power and Revolution. So very much not knowing how to deal with this or even talk about it on this channel. But again, another major reveal that we have in the Power and Revolution 2023 edition is private military companies. So essentially what this is actually called a paramilitary group. It says the paramilitary group guarantees the signatory country that they will provide personnel as well as light armored vehicles. This unit will be deployed to ground bases within the country and will be under the control or the command of the signatory country's head of armed forces. This contract can be canceled at any time, and then this group's troops will then leave in a quick and orderly manner. So what we are looking at right here is, it says the Parsifal paramilitary group, which is Wagner. Wagner is the infamous type of private military company that is active was active in the city of Bakhmut in Ukraine, and this is now simulated in Power and Revolution. We actually even see the character over to the left, which is Malnanin, which is the character parodying or essentially reenacting Prigozhin. Prigozhin is the head of the Wagner group. So essentially you can ask Wagner to provide troops to you it looks like that you were playing as Angola right here. And so you were saying that you were fighting terrorist groups, for example, and then you want a cheaper alternative to trying to fight this instead of trying to invest in your own military. So it looks like that this is a much cheaper alternative than to increasing your actual military force, and maybe also a much quicker alternative. As you can see right to the right, it says forces available is 65,000. We can request 2,000 of these troops at $500,000 or $500 a pop, I guess. Moving on, we also have the addition of the Schengen area. This is another screenshot that I believe I talked about in the previous type of a video, in which I talked about the Schengen area, but I was not allowed to show it to you guys. So what we have right here is the new metric of the European Union, in which you can enter and leave the Schengen area. Essentially what this does is that it reforms how immigration now works as the European Union. The Schengen area is essentially saying that you do not need a passport, you do not need any sort of document in order to pass through the countries that are listed in the Schengen area. So you can pass from Portugal, France, Germany, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia without being stopped or even asked for documents, and basically saying that you can pass through these countries with any sort of reason you want without essentially being stopped by immigration forces. And then so if you were playing as Ukraine, for example, and you join the European Union, you can join the Schengen area, and then they can do the same to you. And essentially what this does is that it would benefit your tourism industry. So maybe on the off chance that we have a feature that is not being talked about by Eversim, maybe with the increase in the immigration simulation, maybe we're going to have a little more simulation whenever it comes to tourism. So I also think that may be beneficial whenever it comes to the issuance of tourist visas, or the visa mechanic in Power and Revolution 2023. So I believe the gameplays in Power and Revolution 2023 could be beneficial whenever it comes to you entering the Schengen area, because it could benefit you tourist-wise, and then essentially money-wise, whenever your tourism industry gains more money, and then you gain more tax revenue off of that industry. And then we also have the new criteria that we have on Power and Revolution. This is children aged 7 to 14 economically active. So essentially what this does is that it lists countries that have more children than other countries that are economically active, again, between the ages of 7 to 14. And what this essentially is replicating is how active child labor is in your country. And child labor can be a very wide-ranging topic. So it could basically mean like a child is moving water from one area to another, or that they are working inside of a factory. Most often than not, it's going to be factory workers. I also like how China has a very low amount of child workers, but at least that's in accordance to its population. So maybe they have a lot of them, but yeah, it even says like 6.17% is the low ranging marker of this metric. So maybe I would assume that would be China. It also says India actually has a much higher population of child workers than China does. So very interesting metrics here. I believe that Power and Revolution is going in the right direction. I think that, I'm very much afraid that there is not going to be much to this update. I know Eversim kind of hides a lot of stuff under the hood, so you really don't know what else they have added until you get the game. There's usually a lot of aesthetic changes. There's a lot of things that change whenever it comes to like the gameplay. A lot of the gameplay has been changing over the last couple of years, where things like energy production is talked about, where your characters come up to you and say, hey, you need to increase your energy production, or we're having like irrigation, desertification. We have car accidents. Here's a car accident metric that you get every year. We have criminal statistics that we get every year. On whether it's getting better or worse. And that was actually a lot of that was added in the previous edition. So I know there's going to be a lot that's under the hood. From what we have right now, there's only 2 major additions that they sent me. They really only went into detail on military and immigration. The other themes are really not talked about. So we have the sale and purchase and annexation of territory, which is basically talked about as, here's what you can do. That's very basic. What we have on the poster is justice. Justice takes up almost half of the freaking poster. And I'm only looking at a just small sentence of what justice has to do in the game. So right over on the right, what we have right here on this screenshot is things such as the determination of severity of punishments. We have the standing in accordance with the Convention Against Torture. We have the implementation of a social credit system. We have the criminal age of responsibility. We have the consent age.
Whoa, hey.
Which is really weird. And then we have things such as amnesty and stand in accordance with Convention Against Torture. What we have next to those is the it looks like a little feather pen with inside of an ink part and inside of an ink spot. And what what that is also very interesting, because I don't really know, and again, they don't explain to me in the email that they sent what that means in determinants of like what that is going to be affecting. So again, maybe we'll see that in the future of what this is going to be determining. Another thing that I think I only mentioned once is that there is a big update to the realistic construction. So realistic construction basically means that instead of, a set date that we have where, you increase the manpower and that lowers the amount of time that it takes to create a construction, maybe what they did is that it actually takes several years for it to complete. And what that kind of makes me worry about is the energy bug in Power and Revolution. If they're going to institute realistic construction times, what they need to make sure is that when I start to develop my country, whenever I start to subsidize my secondary sector, what they need to make sure is that that is not going to affect or delay how much time I have before, like, I get a massive increase in energy consumption from my secondary sector because of my growing economy. Because what ends up happening is that my economy grows so much that I'm not able to produce more energy or build enough at a quick enough pace to keep up with that increased energy consumption. So if there is realistic construction times, I really hope that they fix that bug. And a lot of you guys are always talking about they are only adding a couple of features here, they need to fix the bugs. I very much hope that too. And again, I honestly think in my opinion about this game is complicated enough to the point to where you see bugs because it's a step process. It's an Excel spreadsheet. If you mess up one of those code lines, essentially what ends up happening is that you mess up the entire spreadsheet. So the biggest thing about the bugs in Power and Revolution is not because the game is horribly made, but yes, it does have problems whenever it comes to calculating things such as, economic growth, immigration metrics, justice metrics, everything like that, and then calculating the numbers of every single other country in the world that it is trying to simulate. So there are so many code lines that this game is trying to calculate over every single day and every single month and every single quarter of this game as you play it, that over the course of 10 years, it starts to get confused, it starts to jump on top of each other, and that's why you start to see a lot of these code line breaks and a lot of game breaks, is because the game is becoming overwhelmed. Maybe that would be fixed with a brand new engine. I know I disappointed a lot of you guys by thinking that there was a brand new engine. Eversim ended up telling me like a day later saying, hey, that's not true, you need to make another video. And I'm like, okay, I'll go ahead and correct myself. So I think, again, a lot of this could be saved by building a brand new engine. And what I'm really hoping for after 2023 is we're going to get GPS 5. I would honestly be very much okay with waiting until January 2025 to wait for a Power and Revolution 5 or Geopolitical Simulator 5. So honestly, my thoughts on this update throughout all of the time I've had to think about it is that I really wish there was a little more detail whenever it comes to justice about how this is going to affect gameplay, as they did with whenever it came to immigration and whenever it came to military. I'm very much excited for the military gameplay. I'm very much going to be using the military a lot more in Power and Revolution, especially with the 2022 features that we got in accordance with like military strategy and everything like that. I think all of this is finally coming together whenever it comes to military gameplay. The military gameplay has always been underdeveloped in Power and Revolution, but I guess because of the Ukraine war, and not even I guess, like very much because of the Ukraine war, we definitely now finally have some sort of good simulation whenever it comes to the military aspect of Power and Revolution. What we honestly need is a brand new economic update. And I'm very much looking forward to Power and Revolution looking at its economic sectors and looking at its economy simulation and revamping exactly how it does it. It needs to be very much more detailed. We need a plethora of new economic sectors in order to kind of get us with the times of what's coming. And I don't have any sort of news on whether there's a major economic change coming or if there's any new economic sectors. Maybe there's one or two that I can assume, which is definitely going to be, we have tanks, drones. We're going to have suicide drones probably. We're going to have things like military equipment that will be an economic sector, I would hope. So honestly, I'm excited for this. I'm very much going to hold off on my final thoughts until I get my hands on the game and preview it for you guys. But honestly, I'm very much looking forward to this, and I wonder if you guys are too. So guys, tell me your thoughts on your excitement or disappointment of the Power and Revolution 2023 edition down below. I do not have any sort of release date right now. I will make a video in the future if I get a release date, so it'll probably be a very short video whenever I do that because I'm already talking about all of the features right now. So other than that, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you guys want to see more content like this, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss anything whenever I do make it to the channel. And if you guys want to make sure that you are up to date whenever any more information or release dates come out for 2023, again, subscribe to the channel. I'll keep you guys updated on my community tab and on my actual video lists. So again, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.